not all things are biomechanical in nature. People are quick to be like, this is short and this is long, and we've got internal rotation problem here and external rotation problem there. But I've never seen anyone on social media observe, say, like a slouched forward posture and suggest, oh, maybe that person has an issue with their esophagus. Maybe there's inflammation through their digestive system. Maybe that is why they are rounding forward. And maybe it has nothing to do with biomechanics at all. I think unless we have these conversations and gain a clearer understanding that there's a lot more going on than just biomechanical tension lines, that's the only way we're going to make any meaningful progress and stop missing these key indicators of a problem. Pain is a late stage indicator of a problem. If you have had any sort of incision or trauma to your body, if you do not purposefully reintegrate movement into that area that has been, cut, damaged, changed, it's going to go somewhere else. And you can wait until there's pain to start to figure out where that's going to be, or you can purposefully shape where that movement is going to be pouring. I think if I were to share some tips on getting your head wrapped around the rehab process, it's don't compare yourself to a past version of yourself. Your training should look very different in different chapters of your life. Sometimes you find that organically, and sometimes you find that by learning hard lessons like injuries. There was this thought that maybe surgery would solve my problems. What I say to my clients today is surgery isn't a new shoulder. It is a different shoulder to rehab. In the classic medical physiotherapy, chiropractic, classic systems, you start from a place of discovering a medical diagnosis. A medical diagnosis is generally an indication of damage. This approach is really, really effective for acute injuries. When I say acute, I generally mean traumatic. That type of injury means something external to you has created the damage. A diagnosis in that regard is less productive for the type of injury that occurs because of how you are moving. That is the world that I live in. That is what the posture revival and my programs go through, are injuries that are the result of how your body is coordinating and organizing movement. What are the conditions in your body that are leading to that area being overloaded? Because we're not going to solve the damage if we are just focusing on the place where the damage is when it comes to atraumatic chronic injuries, meaning there's not an external force causing it. It is your movement that is causing the overload point. If we're talking about the shoulder, what we want to understand is the head, the rib cage, and the pelvis all reciprocate each other's movement, which means if you tip your pelvis forward, your rib cage is going to lift up and your chin is going to drop down. We want to start to understand central alignment and coordination because those are the biggest pieces. If you have an imbalance in the way that your pelvis, rib cage, and head are sequencing movement, you are going to leave your rotator cuff out to dry because it is so small in the grand scheme of things. If you're not initiating and driving that movement from those big central pieces, you are always going to run into rotator cuff problems. It does not matter how many little banded exercises you do. How your rib cage initiates movement relative to the rest of the system is going to be king when it comes to solving a shoulder problem. The way that I want my online business to now shape out is to have meaningful impact on people's lives. Yes, there is meaningful impact in like a quick fix exercise, but I started to recognize that people didn't need more exercises. People needed a plan and accountability and support so that as they go through these normal road bumps of recovery where things get better, things get worse, there's someone keeping them accountable to hitting an endpoint that is productive for their long-term goals. But I wanted to have this podcast be a way for people to really gain autonomy over their body and understand how to start applying exercises and what that means in their body and what these sensations mean so that they are empowered to take effective action, not reactive action. The first and most important thing that I will tell you about getting someone out of pain and meeting their expectations of an outcome is setting clear expectations. That's it. In order to meet or exceed an expectation, we need to define the expectation. And if you don't define it, Google search is going to define it. I think this expectation that more ranges of motion that are massive are going to save you from injury. And I will tell you firsthand that is not true. I want you to talk to a dancer. I want you to talk to a gymnast, a cheerleader. Talk to anybody who works in a sport where you require very large ranges of motion and ask them how they feel, because it probably hurt. But if you are trying to improve your fitness, give yourself more energy, get stronger, stay out of pain, feel good, I think mobility is a smaller piece of that equation than you might be led to believe in the current fitness industry. I personally hate cold plunges more than anything. I feel horrible after doing them. I feel like I'm cold for like 5 days afterwards. It doesn't sit well in my body. I'm not a huge plus on that one. I certainly personally prefer heat. I think it's become a really popular thing. As soon as something becomes a business, which it has become, all of the research suddenly says it's good. And so what I would really encourage you guys to do with regards to like heat and cooling, decide if it feels productive in your body. Don't just do it because the internet told you or there's a new business in town that does it. Really listen into your body. If it feels like it's having a positive impact on mood, pain levels, performance, go for it. If it doesn't, don't stress, because I wouldn't say that it's going to make or break. It's really just like cherry on top of a really solid foundation of good movement, good rest, and good eating. So the first thing we want to do when we see a knee that is missing a range of motion is to create multiple alternative pathways of stability. Because if your body doesn't have a lot of different ways to stabilize, it's going to lock down that knee and hold a lot of tension in it. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see, because there is value in pushing into an end range of motion at your knee if that restriction is due to stiff fascial tissue. But if it is due to your muscles guarding instability, you are going to run into problems if you force your knee over your toe or you force your knee into a particular position. For me, the first question really becomes, what is hurting? When is it hurting? What position is it hurting in? Let's reproduce that as our baseline assessment point before I start poking and prodding and changing the feedback in the system. Let's say if you're a runner and right now it's hurting your knee, outside of your knee, to jump on one leg or stride or take off through mid stance, we're going to have you hop on one leg. That's what we're going to look at. And what we want to start to collect is information about what part of the movement is creating problems. Is it right off the start? Is it later into the movement? This is going to be our assessment. We are not going to break out into orthopedic tests until we see the context of the bigger picture, because it's going to guide our assessment.